Okay, next we have someone really special. We've got Melissa Milloway, and she's going to be doing a demo of Adobe XD. My goodness, guys, you're in for an absolute treat today. So over to you, Mel. Have fun.
Okay, awesome. So hi everyone. So I'm here today with my dog Zeddy, who's my little colleague. And today we are going to be designing in Adobe XD. You can either follow along with me, or I recommend that you just watch, just because of time's sake. It might be easier just to watch. And so we're going to be looking at a virtual reality design tool, and then we're also going to be styling and prototyping wireframe that I mocked up on an assessment on APA style capitalization. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm going to be screen sharing the whole time. You're more than welcome to ask questions along the way, and then I'll try to answer all the questions while I'm actually doing the design at the same time. So hold on one second while I pop up the screen share. Make sure I have the correct screen share going on. You could probably hear Zeddy. He's like crying for banana because he wants banana. So for anyone who is here today, I have this Google Docs. I don't know if everyone has this open, but if someone wants to pop the Google Docs link in the chat, feel free to. So this actually has all of my resources that we're going to use today and go over today. So we'll start with our VR design, and it's a specific plugin for Adobe XD that allows you to do VR design. Then we're going to jump into that styling and prototyping the capitalization assessment. So you can download Adobe XD for free. I'm going to show Photoshop very briefly, and then we'll also just be mainly focused on Adobe XD. So all the resources are here. You can go take a look at these either during or after. So the first part before I even jump into XD that I like to do is make sure I have all of my content ready. So all of the copy or just text that is going to go into my project, I outline before I even get into design. And then once I have all that, what I do is jump into the actual tool itself. So we're going to take a look at this cool VR plugin really quick, just as like an icebreaker, kind of like fun thing to look at in here. So this is in Adobe XD, and I'm on the design tab currently. If you look in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a few different icons down here. There's a panel that's going to have all of your assets, your colors, your components, your character styles, which are like the text styles. And then there's layers. So each of the artboards that I have here have different layers. And then there are these plugins. So there's tons and tons of plugins. Anyone can create a plugin for Adobe XD. So there's a whole actual panel where you can go and search for different plugins. And there is this plugin called, let me see if I can find it here. I have so many plugins open. It's called Draft XR. And so Draft XR actually allows you to create these like fake virtual reality experiences. And so you can use these as a way to mock up a virtual reality experience before you go into development. So what I'm going to do is hopefully I can just go back and select this. It's asking me to upload a new draft, but this is the draft. So hold on, let's see. So this is going ahead and saving. And so I can I've already gone ahead and created one here. So this is what it would look like without a background or anything in it. I have this populated here, so this would be able to launch a new icon. So what you can actually do, and I've included this in the file itself, is when you select an artboard, you can go ahead and upload a background. So if I want to go into, and I have a background for everyone to use, there's all these different backgrounds here. So I've done this kind of like COVID theme for a barber shop. So this will help people to be able to identify what safety precautions people have taken in this barber shop. So you have to use a photo. They're called equi-rectangular photos. And I can go ahead and load that into here.
Hey Mel, I've just got a question from the audience. So Nate just wants to know, is this VR or AR, or does that differentiation not matter?
Yes, it's virtual reality, so it's completely different from augmented reality, but there are tools where you can do both. So one of the tools that I've used in the past is called A-Frame, and it's a really easy to use tool, and you can do both virtual reality and augmented reality. I haven't tried augmented reality in it though, so it's a little bit different. But you can definitely easily create an experience like this in A-Frame. Or there's also a tool called Scenario VR, which allows you to do VR. So you can use goggles if you want, or you can just be in a browser, either like just like a phone, or it could be like in just like your laptop browser or iPad or whatnot. So this is just a really quick, cool, handy tool that will allow you to do that. So something that you would want to do is be able to interact with these different icons and things as well. So you can place icons throughout the artboard here, and it will show up in your experience. So something that I might do in this is I may actually like want to see where things are placed. And I have this up here because I'm terrible at working in a 3D space. I can never remember my like up from down from like the different directions. That's something that I've been trying to basically figure out and like be better at in general. Something that you can do is you can, in an XD, which is really cool, if you zoom in, there's a thing called repeat grid. And on the repeat grid, and I have the repeat grid already selected, so there's this icon up here. When you click on it, you can actually go ahead and put icons all the way across the board. So if I want to see where things are specifically placed, I can do that. And then if I go back over to my Draft XR plugin, I can save my configuration here. And then when I go to publish again, and it's saving, it will re-upload and you'll be able to see exactly where those different icons are on there. And so, you know, like how Tim Slade was talking about having a portfolio and creating little portfolio pieces. This is something that can show like the diversity in your portfolio, that you don't just have like standard e-learning. You can quickly and easily create a VR experience and get familiarized with VR to show that's also something that you can do as well. So that's this here. And then you can also make these interactive. So I'll just quickly go back over to this because I could have sworn that I had it already set up, but I guess I do not. So the other piece is on the prototype tab. What you can do is when the person hovers over this or clicks over this, you'll be able to see this specific board here. So this will pop up. So it will change from this over to this. So when the person taps on this, you can do an interaction. You'll be able to see that. So what I can do is, and let me see if this will go ahead.
I've just got some questions, Mel.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Nicole has said, I just got a Quest. Are these usable there?
Sorry, got a what?
A Quest. I believe it's like a product, a Quest. Are these usable there?
I'm not sure what a Quest is. Can you explain maybe a little bit more about what it is?
Oculus Quest, Nicole.
Oh, Oculus Quest. I'm not quite sure with this plugin what that would look like. I think you would have to try it out. I'm not as familiar with the goggles. I'm more so familiar with like the developing in some of these tools. I actually only had a Google Daydream. I didn't have any other goggles, so I'm not as familiar with the goggles. I know that if you look on Scenario VR's website, so Scenario is a Travantis company, so the people that make Lectora, you can actually see, I think they have a post on all the different goggles and recommended goggles that they use with their tools. So I would assume whatever works with theirs would be pretty similar because they do these types of experiences as well. The more like actual locations, like photographs and videos versus like the 3D animation and things like that with VR.
Great, thanks, Mel. She's going to experiment and report back, she said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have some resources in there for just different development tools for VR as well, if anyone wants to go and check those out. So you can see here, I have this actually not on hover, and I thought I had it on hover, but I have it on tap. And so what you have to do is you can switch it over to hover if you do go and play around with this, because there is an actual, like, if you click on the screen, you can do it on hover. You have to go through and add the background to each of the artboards because you can actually make it so you're transitioning into like different experiences. So I don't have to have this barber shop look and feel for everything. I can actually change it to be something else if I want to have it be something else. So it could go into like an outdoor space. It could go basically anywhere that you have a video or a photo for. So the other thing is you can get a 3D camera pretty cheap too. They're about $100. So you can see, oops.
Just got another question, Mel. Carly has said, how do you get the plugin to show up in XD?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's pretty simple. So what you would do is the plugin panel down here. What you would just do is click this plus, and what that will do is open up all these plugins. So there's tons of plugins right here or you can search for them and check out the different ones. I say just like go through and experiment with them. There's just hundreds of different plugins that you can use. You can see I have a lot of them over here. So there's definitely a good amount, I would say. And basically for this one, you have to be able to have your screen selected and then you go into the plugin and it will bring up everything. And I changed that. I think actually I did not upload that. So I'm going to go back and you have to remember to click upload and then save, or else it won't save. That's the bad thing because some of these tools are newer. They're still working on them. So they're not like fully realized yet. So you have to kind of play around and get used to it. So this does definitely have like some drawbacks because it's newer. So you can see now when I go in there, I can go ahead and just hover over and you'll be able to see what it says. So I'm going to, go ahead.
Sorry, Mel. Do you recommend working in XD over Illustrator?
Well, I definitely recommend it for if you're going to be doing mock-ups and prototypes. So I'm actually going to go into my wireframe now and I can talk a little bit about like why I'm using it, what I'm using it for, those types of things. I actually use Illustrator and XD in conjunction with each other. So I may open an illustration that would go in here and edit it and change it and then bring it into here. So I wanted to kind of go over my process here and I can talk a little bit about that. So I'm actually going to show what I'm doing in Photoshop on here too. So before I develop any kind of project that's going to be very new or different like this. So this is an assessment that I've created. So it has a few screens, the main screens that I would use besides the final screen, which I don't have on here. What I do is I do a low fidelity wireframe. So that means I don't have any colors. I don't have any kind of styling applied to it. I did put the font in here just for time's sake. So that lets me really focus on the content and it lets me focus on the user experience and detracts from all of the other stuff. I don't want to add in styling and get distracted by all of that. So it lets me focus on one thing at a time. So my process is I develop a wireframe and then once I have all of the content in here, I move to a more high fidelity product. So that means I add the styling, I add the interactions, the animations, all of that. And then I move into user testing. And then after that, I do iterations based on feedback from users or what I'm seeing the users do or struggle with. And then I move into development. So this really helps me to save time in the long run. And I also get sign off from my stakeholders before moving into development. So it will save me tons of time because I don't have to worry about like, oh, should I move the button down here? Because people are getting confused after it's already launched, where to click. So it really allows me to see how the user's experiencing something before I do too much of an investment. So for this particular interaction, this is something I've never created before. It's an assessment that someone would take that would assess where their skills are when it comes to APA style writing, specifically on capitalization. So there's all these rules around capitalization, what to capitalize and not capitalize. And so what I was hoping to do was create a project where people would be able to answer questions, and that would be recorded to a learning management system or learning record store using XAPI. So Devlin Peck's going to talk about that later. And then based on how the person answers, it would send them like an email or some kind of nudge or push on where their gaps are. So it could send them like a specific like user guide or something to help them where their gaps are in regards to this. So I want to jump into styling, but feel free to like ask questions along the way. So one of the things that I like to do before I start a project is create like an inspiration board, a mood board. So I've created 2 different mood boards here. One for interactions that I like. So I have these cool start screens. So I really like that it's very minimal. It's illustrations, kind of like the call to action, what the project is, buttons, those types of things. And then I have interactions for like the different quiz types. So I went on Behance and then Dribble and a few other sites that you can grab inspiration from like a user experience perspective. And I just took some of those examples of things that are actually out there and working in different apps. And this is Duolingo down here. So I've just taken kind of some inspiration from places in regards to like what the UI looks like in the interactions. And then I have my inspiration for the look and feel. So I have this kind of like 3D look. Like I like this. This is very popular nowadays, and I wanted to incorporate this in a personal project. So I decided I was going to do that with this one. Some colors. So I wanted the colors to match this because this is the illustration that I'm using, and I didn't want to put too much time into this and change all the colors in the illustration. And then shapes, I really love like the organic kind of like circles and things like that. So I wanted to add that. And then for the fonts, I'm using Poppins. So Poppins is a Google font. And this one actually works with a lot of different languages because it uses glyphs, and there's glyphs in I think over 150 languages. So not all fonts support glyphs. So I wanted to, based on what I've created over here and with the styling, I wanted to get started on the actual mock-up itself. So one of the things that I want to do, I like that like that's the circle kind of like look and feel of things. And so one of the things that I've actually learned is if you create buttons and things that are more so rounded, it actually catches people's eyes. So one of the things like I really want someone to focus on in this particular project would be the contact us button. And I actually might change this to like a feedback button. So I've gone ahead and just kind of created this with a wireframe plugin. So if I go down to the plugins here, you can see there's a plugin called Mockup. So let's see, where is it? Quick Mockup. And so what I've actually done is I've wireframed all of this with pre-made components, and they're all over here. So basically you can just double click and it will put them onto the screen for you, and then you can style them. So it's a really good way to like quickly get started on your project and mocking it up. And that's called Quick Mockup, and it's in the Google Docs that I have there. So I'm going to change this to be rounded, and this is a component. So when you go over to the component panel with the assets and everything like that, you can see I have a few components down here. And so when I change a component on one board, it will change wherever it is across all of the other boards, which is pretty nifty. So that's why I love using this, because it just goes so quickly and you can edit things so quickly. So if I change the component in one place, it's going to change everywhere. Not like in PowerPoint where you would have to possibly like put it on the slide master, copy and paste it everywhere. You can really just quickly change it, and you don't have to change just one. You can change every single one, or you can just change one. So the other thing I like to look at is accessibility. So I really rely on these plugins to help me in some sense. So I may actually keep that color that I had there, and I put the colors over here. So if you ever need to like add a color, you can go ahead and you can take them from anywhere. So if I click on this and click that here, it will add it to my panels over there, but I really don't want that one because it's pretty harsh. I don't really need that for any particular reason. But say I want to test accessibility with this, and this is definitely not accessible. What I can do is I can go over to my plugins, and there's this plugin called Stark. And what Stark will do is let me test different things. So it can do a colorblind simulation. It can test contrast. So if I go ahead and test contrast, a panel will pop up, and the panel says that this is not accessible at all. So I cannot use this combination if I want this button to be accessible. So what I would do potentially is come and change this font, this text, to be like a darker color, and then go back and check the contrast. So if you have a style guide or something that you're working with that has rules about this, you don't have to worry about it so much. But if you're just kind of creating your own project, this is something that's super helpful. So now I can check contrast, and this is really good. So you want to at least meet AA, and this is good because for large, it meets AAA accessibility. So that's like the best that you can do, basically. So I'm going to keep that like this. And I may change that later. I may go around and say, like, maybe I want like a lighter pink, because I can always do that.
Mel, I've just got a question here.
Yes.
Ivan's asked, is that accessibility plugin or similar available for other design tools, Adobe or otherwise?
I don't think it's available for other tools, but there's tons of different plugins for accessibility. I think I actually have one on my Google Chrome here. I may not have it, but there's one called WebAIM. And this is one that you can use too. So if you're looking at anything on the web in general, this will help you be able to test accessibility, and not just color. It will go beyond that as well. So that's a really good one as well.
Thanks, Mel. Awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. So the other thing that's going to make a really big difference in this is going to be the illustration. So I really like this illustration style here. So I've already gone ahead, and this is why I love working in XD. So people are like, why don't you work in Figma or Sketch or some of the other files? I use all of the Adobe products, and they integrate with each other so easily. So that's why I tend to use XD. So I've already got these images here in my library, and you can invite anyone to your library. So what I can do is, with the Adobe stock like CC library, what I could do is just drag and drop the illustrations in there. So you can see I have this illustration. It was like super easy to add in, and I can even go ahead and edit this in Photoshop, which I'm going to do with one of these in a little bit. And I can just drag and drop it back in, and it will be adjusted, which is like pretty cool. So I like to add illustrations either to draw attention to something or to support what's going on the screen. So for this particular example here, I have this woman, and she's facing into the text. And so one of the things I like to do is have an illustration that draws your attention to the text. So if she was facing the opposite direction, so if she's facing over there, it's drawing your eye away from the screen. So especially with people tend to look at faces. And so when you look at the face, you're following the face and where the face is directed. So one of my tips is, if you have people on your screen or your main screen and you want to direct attention to something like the text, that's a good way to get that across. Another thing I like to talk a little bit about is fonts. So I've already gone ahead and done some of the adjustments with the fonts in here. So there's lots of like specific rules around fonts and different things like that. So one of the rules that I like to follow to help the text be as readable as possible is to have 40 to 50 characters across. So I keep my paragraph text left aligned for easy readability. I never do centered unless it's less than 2 lines. And then I make sure that it has about 50 characters across. And there's tools that can actually help you to be able to identify how many characters. Otherwise, it's really, really difficult to read. So if you look at this, like your eyes have to go all the way over there. And if you have about 40 to 50 characters in a line, it's just easier to see across. And it might be, I can't remember if it's 50 to 60 or 40 to 50, but it's somewhere around that range that you want to keep it, because that's going to be easier to read. The other thing, and I just saw someone post on LinkedIn that was sharing the other day, is the actual spacing between the lines. So the line spacing. So my rule around line spacing is that I want to times whatever the font size is by 1.5. So that's going to allow your eyes to easily rest and read these characters. Otherwise, if you have a huge gap, so if I change this to like 80, it's going to be really hard because your eye has to go from here down to here, and then vice versa. Like if you have this really tiny, your eye has to like squint to see what the actual like text is. So it's a lot harder. So there's this rule that is, if you have it times 1.5, the font size, it's just easier to read. There's been tests done around that. So this is kind of shaping up, but there's a lot that I want to do with the styling on this yet. So the other thing is I have these colors here, and another rule is I tend to use like a bright color to direct people's eyes to things. So I want to stick to this kind of red versus blue with buttons or things that I want people to focus on, because that's what's going to draw their eye in. And if you really want to see where people's eyes focus, there's a plugin for that too. So you can test with real users, which is going to be the best way to do it. But there's actually plugins to be able to see where people are going to be looking on the screen. So there's this plugin called Attention Insight, and Attention Insight actually shows the heat map of where someone's eyes would be going when they're looking at your project. So this is super helpful. I'm going to go ahead and click this. So you do have to sign in to create an account, and you want to look at like where the stuff goes so that for privacy, you're not uploading something to their cloud that you don't want, but you want to check this out, like maybe with something that just has lorem ipsum or something like that in it that doesn't have private information. So when I have my artboard selected and I click generate heat map, this is going to start going. And feel free to keep asking questions along the way.
We do have a question, Mel. I'm thinking it could be answered soon, but it's once you've created this, how do you get it onto your LMS?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So here's the heat map, and then I'll answer that question. So this is not always like super accurate, but what you can see is it's really like the main key point that people are going to focus on here is going to be this person, this illustration. So this is going to show you where people's eyes might go. So that's pretty cool. But the best way to do it would be to do a usability test and kind of notice how someone is interacting with your product, where their mouse is going, where they might be pausing, and those types of things. So the question was in regards to how would you get this onto your learning management system? So that's something that I also consider when I'm doing the design here. So this isn't something that I would take and just put on a learning management system. This is something that would help me to plan my design. And then I would move into development in a tool like Storyline, Captivate, or I may even code this if it's something that needs to be coded, or I could work with a developer to code this. But for this particular project, I would probably develop this in Storyline. And so what I would do with this is I would export this. So I can export it to a PDF, or I can go ahead and there's like a share button here. So I can do a design review or development, but I'm going to do design just so you can see what this looks like for design. Oh, or it's not going to let me on because maybe it does not think I'm logged in. That's so strange. Okay. I have no idea why it's not allowing me to do that. But essentially, you would be able to click on that link there, and that would allow you to share this kind of like interactive prototype of this. And then you would be able to pull little dots onto it and make comments on it. So what I would do with that is I would be having this on one screen, and then I'd have Storyline open on another screen, and I would be referring to this to actually develop my Storyline project. So you can export images and things from here. So if I wanted to use the buttons and export them from here as PNGs, as images, I can do that. That's perfectly fine. But I would definitely use this as kind of like my storyboard, what I would go off of if I were going to develop this. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, we've got another question, Mel.
Yeah.
Karen said, what if your employer says, why not design in Storyline immediately? How do you defend the extra time in a prototyping tool in their eyes?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it's all about the user. And so when I have a conversation with a stakeholder, I've never had a stakeholder push back about designing before moving into development, but it's all about the user. And so this is going to allow us to make sure that this works and that it's worth the investment before moving into development, so that we can catch any bugs, we can catch anything that may not work appropriately. So for instance, I was working on a RISE project with someone, and they were actually leading the project, and I asked them about user testing. And so they were like, okay, let's just like pop into a quick 30-minute session with like a user. So they popped into the session for the user testing, and they actually found out. So their stakeholder was like, I want videos, like we need videos. And they actually found out that the users were going through the text and referring to the text to do the activities. And it was helping to actually help them retain the knowledge and practice the knowledge. Whereas a video, they would have had to rewatch the video and then go back, and they wouldn't have done that. They would have just kind of done the activity. So for us, like for me, it helps me to really understand like how is the user interacting with this product? Is it going to help them in the best way possible? So it helps me to be able to knock out any of those things and actually save time in the long run, because you don't have to go back and make adjustments. And you know that it works because you're able to actually test with users. So that actually brings me to the prototyping piece. So I already have this mocked up, but it really doesn't take that long to go in and do the design. Like I don't spend more than a day on design typically for something like this. So you can actually go in and go through the prototype. And if you want to create and make this interactive, you can click on whatever you want, and you can do it based on time. You can do it based on clicks, different things like that. So if I want someone to click on the start button and that to go to the next screen, what I can do is just click on this little thing here, drag and drop, and then it can go to my next screen. So I can take this, it's going to do all different things. I don't want any kind of animation. It auto does dissolve, but I don't really have a need for animation or transition to go to the next screen on this. So I'm going to click none. And then in the prototype here, you'll notice there's a play button. So when you go up here and do play, you can actually have it go then to the next screen. So what you can do is you can create this and then share this prototype with users, or you can have them screen share and record them actually going through it. So what I like to do with the usability tests is record the person going through the prototype. So I ask them like to complete specific tasks, or I ask them specific questions like, can you tell me about like how you would get to the next screen? And so I would see like they would click on the start button, hopefully. And if they didn't, that means to me that my design's not working if they can't immediately click to go to the next screen, and that I need to change something. So I ask a lot of questions to help me understand how the person is using the product, and is it being used in the way that I intended? And if not, how can I change my design to better suit them? So there would be two different things I would look at with the usability testing. One would be, are they able to use the product and not have it get in way of the learning? And then two, are they actually able to apply what they're learning from the actual product that I've created? So can they use the product, and does the product help them to be able to develop those skills or apply those skills? So then I would definitely go through and oops, and go back over to design. And you can see here, this button, the ones that are green like this, they're components. This is not a component, but you can see I have the submit button on 2 different screens. So if I went ahead and edited this one's not going to change. So what I might do is make this a component, delete this one off of there, copy this, and then paste this back on. You want to have the components made before you get too far in, or else we'll have to do that for every single one. So if I go over here, that one will change again, and I'll probably copy the styling from this. So if I want to copy this, I can come in here and paste the appearance. Oops, I did not copy the right thing. And go in and paste. So you can see it's just adjusted to that. And some other things down here, I have this one not as a button because this is the main action I want people to take, and this would be a secondary action. So I would have those more as hyperlinks versus like looking like buttons. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've just got a question, Mel, from Nina. She has asked, would you lay out the entire course in XD before moving to Storyline, or just a few key screens and then recreate the rest in Storyline?
I would do just a few key screens because for me, the most important thing about prototyping it is basically seeing like, are the main screens, the main interactions getting in the way of the person learning? So that's the main reason why I use it, because I wanted the person to be focused on the learning and not focused on how to use the game or the e-learning or whatnot. Whatever I create, I want the person to be focused on the content and learning versus anything. So for me, it's more about the key screens versus having every single one created. So that's why I only have 2 different interactions here. So throughout this project, I'd only use these 2 different activities. And then I have these feedback artboards here. And something I was trying to figure out is, and I could do like an A/B test on this. Do I use this one for the feedback screen, this layout, or do I use this layout? So that's something I would look at too, is maybe I would do one layout for one of these and then the other for the other one, and see like which one was easier for the user to use and focus on. So did this help them focus on the feedback more than this one that has more like there's busyness around it? So I'd also look at that as well, because you may not use the same like layout for every single thing. You may want to test 2 different layouts and see which one works better, which is super helpful. And it's just really fast to work on these things too. Oh, that looks awful. And this is like true to like what I would go through. Like I go around and I play with things until I get to a certain spot. I only allow myself a certain amount of time to work on these things, because you could literally be in design forever if you got used to it. Something else for shadows, another key thing is, I guess, like there's research that's been done too. Shadows are not purely black. So usually I try to do a shadow that's like in one of the colors that I have here. So I did not mean to do that. So I might do something that's like more in this blue color, but like darker, because shadows are not pure black. So you can't really tell there, but it's just nice. It's a nice way to do shadows as well. And yeah, any final questions about this? I'm going to be working on this design the rest of today, and then I'm going to be putting it out there for folks to see. So you'll be able to follow up on what I did after this. Ooh, that is terrible.
That's amazing, Mel. Thank you so much. There's no more questions that have come through, but the chat has just been, so impressed by what you've been showing us. It's incredible what you can do and all of those plugins. It's amazing. It's going to be really great for all of us. So thank you so much for being at the Learning Conference, for sharing your knowledge and value with us. And we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really great. And thank you for giving me this time to share with everyone. I appreciate it.